Hey everybody, it's Monika and welcome to my channel where I help social workers, therapists, and helping professionals deepen their level of self-awareness while increasing their competence and confidence in the profession. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about explaining confidentiality to clients and give you some language on what you can say. So if you're interested in this video, then please keep watching. I'm Monika Thomas, the founder and clinical social worker at Kindred Connections Therapy Center. I've been a social worker for over 12 years. I decided to do an entire YouTube channel on my journey from cubicle working social worker to successful entrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. So as social workers, confidentiality is a major part of our core code of ethics. And I did a previous video about confidentiality and I'll place it here just in case you would like to view that video. So when we're talking about confidentiality with clients, it's important to know what to say. And I always like to think about creating a script, and I'm going to share the script with you that I oftentimes use with my clients. So it's a couple important things to note about client privacy and client confidentiality. The first thing is that confidentiality is not absolute, meaning there are some exceptions to us being able to share information about our clients with our coworkers and with other agencies. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those things could be that you can share and the things that you should keep confidential. And the reason why this issue of confidentiality is so important is because clients are sharing really personal information with us. They're sometimes sharing things with us that they've not shared with their parents, that they've not shared with their partner. They're sharing deep, dark secrets with us, and they're trusting us to keep that information private and not tell anyone who doesn't have a need or a right to know. And it's also important to note that when sharing information or client documentation, confidentiality is a legal matter, meaning social workers can be sued for sharing information that they're not supposed to share. And also when clients are involved with criminal cases or if they have children's services cases, those will be times when you will have to breach confidentiality with your clients. So let's talk about sharing information with colleagues and agencies. So when it comes to sharing information with colleagues and agencies, there will be some times when you will share client information with a coworker to try to get insight around what to do with a client if you're stuck on how to help them or you need ideas for interventions or ways to help them move forward in a change process. So sharing information within your organization could be totally fine, but when you're talking about sharing information outside of your organization, that is when you always want to ensure that you have a release of information on file. The release of information is a document that the client signs giving you permission to share their information with people who might have a related interest in the things that are going on with the client. So if a client is in therapy, they might sign a release of information for you to talk with their child's teacher. But even if you talk with the child's teacher, there still are some limitations to confidentiality, meaning you don't have to share the diagnosis of a child with the teacher just because you're in communication with the teacher about the child's behavior. Oftentimes, if teachers do know the diagnosis of children, that can be a reason for teachers to label children, to treat them differently, or to single them out because of their behavior. So you want to be very careful about sharing that information with teachers and staff. If within your agency you have case conferences, that will be another appropriate time for you to be able to discuss client information with your coworkers. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to share the client's name or any identifying information. You could just share the details and the specifics about the case that you're working on. So when it comes to communicating confidentiality with your clients and helping them understand that it's not absolute, like we said before, this is the script that I like to use with my clients. So I'll say, before we get started, I want to make sure that we cover confidentiality and what that means for our working relationship. So what confidentiality means is that what we discuss in this room stays in the room, and I won't share your information with anyone who doesn't have a need or a right to know. So if anyone was to call my office and say, how's such and such doing in therapy? Is such and such attending her sessions regularly? I won't share any information related to your therapy. The only time that I would share information is if you've signed a release of information giving me permission to communicate with someone else. Now, there are some limitations to confidentiality. So I do have to break confidentiality if you tell me that you want to harm me, if you want to harm someone else, or if you're having suicidal thoughts and you want to harm yourself. If there's any suspicions of abuse or neglect of a child or neglect of an elder, I also have to report that as well. You want to make it clear to your clients that you are a mandated reporter and you're required by law to report any suspicions of abuse or neglect. And that's the exact language that I use, that I have to report any suspicions of abuse or neglect. Another area of confidentiality that you have to be mindful of is if a client reveals to you that they've committed a crime of some sort, but there's been a certain amount of time that's passed. If the client admits to committing a serious crime, then the social worker is required to report that to authorities. But with this, you would always want to check in with your supervisor just to make sure so that they can give you direction. Now, if the client reports that they are having thoughts of homicide, meaning they're wanting to kill someone or harm someone, you absolutely are required to report that to authorities. Another touchy issue can be when you're working with adolescents and teenagers and they reveal to you that they've been cutting or if they have an eating disorder. If the client's behavior indicates that they need some type of protection or they're putting their safety in jeopardy in any way, you definitely want to be able to get the client the level of support that they need. If a client indicates that they have the intent to create a criminal behavior or a criminal act, that's something else that you will want to make sure that you report. You never want to leave these types of situations to chance or assume that you've handled it sufficiently without consulting with your supervisor. If anything within your gut or you get any intuition telling you that you should say something, you probably should. So anytime that you break confidentiality with the client, it could absolutely impact the rapport that you have. But sometimes it's better to keep the client safe, knowing that you can sometimes have the possibility to continue to build the rapport. But I've had situations with clients in the past where they got so upset with me because I had to report the suspicion of abuse or neglect. It was actually educational neglect that I reported on. And when the mom found out, she cussed me out. So there was no repairing that relationship. So you have to know that even though you do the right thing, you still have the possibility of jeopardizing a relationship and having the client choose not to come back for services. And that's one of those decisions that you have to be comfortable making as a social worker because the safety of your client depends on it. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please like, subscribe, or share. I'll be offering more videos to help you deepen your level of self-awareness and to increase your competence and confidence in the profession. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, be well.